A Rhinoceros, Sutta Nipata, SN 1.3. Reading from dhammatalks.org, Talks, Writings and Translations of Thani Sarabhikhu. Thursday, April 14th, 2022. The refrain in this sutta is a subject of controversy. The text literally says, "Wander alone like a sword horn," which is the Pali term for rhinoceros. SNA, however, insists that this refers not to the animal but to its horn, because the Indian rhinoceros, unlike the African, has only one horn. Still, some scholars have noted that while the Indian rhinoceros is a solitary animal, rhinoceros horns don't wander, and that in other verses in the Pali canon, the phrase wander alone like takes a person or an animal, not an animal part, for its object. Thus, for example, in Dhammapada 329 repeated below, one is told to wander alone like a king renouncing his kingdom, like the elephant in the Matanga woods, his herd. It's possible that the rhinoceros was chosen here as an example of solitary wandering, both because of its habits and because of its unusual single horn. However, in a translation, it's necessary to choose one reading over the other. Thus, because wandering like a rhinoceros sounds more natural than wandering like a horn, I have chosen the former rendering. Keep in mind, though, that the singularity of the rhinoceros horn reinforces the image. Other versions of this poem exist in Sanskrit, a short Sanskrit version in the Mahavastu and a Gandhari version in a manuscript discovered in Central Asia. The Gandhari version contains many of the same verses given here, but in a different order. The Mahavastu version contains only 12 verses, but it is followed by a statement that the full version of the sutta contained 500 verses. How that number was achieved is suggested by the fact that, of the 12 verses, several contain only minor variations from one another. All of this suggests that the verses here originally may have been separate poems, composed on separate occasions, and that they were gathered together because of their common refrain. Like the Paranaya Vagga, this poem is given a detailed interpretation in ND2. ND2 ends its discussion of this sutta by saying that it was spoken by a private Buddha, that is, one who gains awakening on his own but is unable to formulate the Dhamma in such a way as to teach others to gain awakening. This assertion, however, is contradicted by the content of some of the verses, such as the one beginning, "Consort with one who is learned, who maintains the Dhamma, a great and quick-witted friend." Such a friend would not have existed in the time of a private Buddha. There is evidence suggesting that in the centuries after the rule of King Ashoka, monastery-dwelling monks began to look askance at forest-dwelling monks, and in some cases even forbade them from entering the precincts around the stupas of their monasteries. Because ND1 and ND2 were most likely composed by monastery-dwelling monks, it might be the case that they tried to blunt the message of this sutta by attributing it to a private Buddha rather than to our Buddha. The implication being that its advice was not appropriate for monks of their day and age. Renouncing violence for all living beings, harming not even one of them. You would not wish for offspring, so how a companion? Wander alone like a rhinoceros. For a person by nature entangled, there are affections. On the heels of affection, this pain. Seeing the drawback born of affection, wander alone like a rhinoceros. One whose mind is enmeshed in sympathy for friends and companions neglects the goal. Seeing this danger in intimacy, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Like spreading bamboo entwined is concern for offspring and spouses. Like a bamboo sprout, unentangling, wander alone like a rhinoceros. As a deer in the wilds, unfettered, goes for forage wherever it wants, the observant person, valuing freedom, wanders alone like a rhinoceros. In the midst of companions, when staying at home, when going out wandering, you are prey to requests. Valuing the freedom that no one else covets, wander alone like a rhinoceros. There is sporting and love in the midst of companions, and abundant love for offspring. Feeling disgust at the prospect of parting from those who would be dear, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Without resistance in all four directions, content with whatever you get, enduring troubles without panic, wander alone like a rhinoceros. They are hard to please, some of those gone forth, as well as those living the household life. Being unconcerned with the offspring of others, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Cutting off the householder's marks, like a Kovilara tree that has shed its leaves. The enlightened one, cutting all household ties, wanders alone like a rhinoceros. If you gain an astute companion, a fellow traveler, right living, enlightened, overcoming all troubles, go with him, gratified, mindful. If you don't gain an astute companion, a fellow traveler, right living and wise, wander alone, like a king renouncing his kingdom, like the elephant in the Matanga wilds, his herd. We praise companionship, yes. Those on a par or better should be chosen as friends. If they are not to be found, living faultlessly, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Seeing radiant bracelets of gold, well made by a smith, clinking, clashing, two on an arm, wander alone like a rhinoceros, thinking, in the same way, if I were to live with another, there would be conversation or attachment. Seeing this future danger, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Because sensual pleasures, elegant, honeyed, and charming, bewitch the mind with their manifold forms. Seeing this drawback in sensual strings, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Calamity, tumor, misfortune, disease, an arrow, a danger for me. Seeing this danger in sensual strings, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Cold and heat, hunger and thirst, wind and sun, horseflies and snakes, enduring all these without exception, wander alone like a rhinoceros. As a great white elephant with massive shoulders, renouncing his herd, lives in the wilds wherever he wants, wander alone like a rhinoceros. There is no way that one delighting in company can touch even momentary release. Heeding the words of the kinsman of the sun, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Transcending the contortion of views, the sure way attained, the path gained, realizing, unled by others, I have knowledge arisen, wander alone like a rhinoceros. With no greed, no deceit, no thirst, no hypocrisy, delusion and blemishes blown away, with no inclinations for all the world, every world, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Avoid the evil companion, disregarding the goal, intent on the discordant way. Don't associate yourself with someone heedless and hankering. Wander alone like a rhinoceros. Consort with one who is learned, who maintains the Dhamma, a great and quick witted friend. Knowing the meanings, subdue your perplexity, then wander alone like a rhinoceros. Free from longing, finding no pleasure in the world's sport, ardor, or sensual bliss, abstaining from adornment, speaking the truth, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Abandoning offspring, spouse, father, mother, riches, grain, relatives, and sensual pleasures altogether, wander alone like a rhinoceros. This is a bondage. There is little happiness here, next to no enjoyment, all the more suffering and pain. This is a boil. Knowing this, circumspect, wander alone like a rhinoceros. Shattering fetters like a fish in the water tearing a net, like a fire not coming back to what's burnt. Wander alone like a rhinoceros. Eyes downcast, not footloose, senses guarded, with protected mind, not soggy, not burning, wander alone like a rhinoceros. taking off the householder's marks, like a coral tree that has shed its leaves, going forth in the ochre robe, wander alone like a rhinoceros, showing no greed for flavors, not wanton, going from house to house for alms, with mind unenmeshed in this family or that, wander alone like a rhinoceros, abandoning barriers to awareness, expelling all defilements, all non dependent, cutting aversion, affection, wander alone like a rhinoceros, turning your back on pleasure and pain, as earlier with sorrow and joy, attaining pure equanimity, tranquility, wander alone like a rhinoceros, with persistence aroused for the highest goal's attainment, with mind unsmeared, not lazy in action, firm in effort, with steadfastness and strength arisen, wander alone like a rhinoceros, not neglecting seclusion, jhana, constantly living the Dhamma in line with the Dhamma, comprehending the danger in states of becoming, wander alone like a rhinoceros, intent on the ending of craving and heedful, neither drooling nor dumb, but learned, mindful, having reckoned the Dhamma, certain and striving, wander alone like a rhinoceros, unstartled like a lion at sounds, unsnared like the wind in a net, unsmeared like a lotus in water, wander alone like a rhinoceros, like a lion, forceful, strong in fang, living as a conqueror, the king of beasts, resort to a solitary dwelling, wander alone like a rhinoceros, at the right time consorting with the release through goodwill, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity, unobstructed by all the world, any world, wander alone like a rhinoceros, having let go of passion, aversion, delusion, having shattered the fetters, unfazed at the ending of life, wander alone like a rhinoceros. People follow and associate for a motive. Friends without a motive these days are rare. They are shrewd for their own ends and impure, wander alone like a rhinoceros.